The Veth had been hunting for 12,000 years. They were tall creatures, with gray skin, and 4 eyes that could see in complete darkness. Their teeth were sharp like knives. Their claws could cut through metal, but their most dangerous weapon was not their body. It was their mind. They were smart hunters, patient hunters. They had killed 17 intelligent species across the galaxy. Not just killed them, they had erased them completely. Every man, woman, and child. Every city, every memory. The Veth did not just hunt for food. They hunted because it was their nature. It was their religion. It was everything they were. Commander Tal stood on the bridge of his warship and looked at the stars. He had served the Veth Dominion for 200 years. He had led hunts on 40 different worlds. He had watched species beg for mercy. He had watched them fight back. He had watched them try to run. In the end, they all died the same way. Afraid and alone. Today, his officers brought him a new report. A small blue planet in a quiet corner of the galaxy. The planet was called Earth by the creatures who lived there. Tal looked at the information on his screen. The humans had primitive technology. They used rockets that burned chemicals. They sent radio signals into space without trying to hide them. They were loud. They were careless. They were perfect prey. Tal smiled with his sharp teeth. He sent his report to the High Council. Within 1 day, Earth was marked as a Category 2 hunting ground. This meant the humans were smart enough to be interesting, but too weak to be dangerous. The Veth would send scouts first, then the hunters, then the cleanup crews who would burn everything to ash. Far away, on the other side of the solar system, a young woman named Yuna sat at her station on the orbital defense platform Baekdu. She was 26 years old, with short black hair and tired eyes. She had been watching her screens for 8 hours without a break. Most days, nothing happened. Space was big and empty and boring. But today was different. Yuna saw something strange on her scanner. 3 small shapes at the edge of the solar system. They appeared for just 2 seconds, then vanished. She checked her equipment. Everything was working correctly. She checked the data again. The shapes were real. Something had been there. She called her captain, a man named Do-hun. He was older, maybe 50, with gray hair and a calm face. He had been in the military for 30 years. He walked to her station and looked at her screen. "What did you see?" he asked. Yuna showed him the recording. The 3 shapes. The 2 seconds. The disappearance. Do-hun did not look surprised. He looked serious. He put his hand on her shoulder. "Good work," he said quietly. "Do not tell anyone else about this. I need to make a call." Yuna wanted to ask questions, but she knew better. Do-hun walked to his private office and closed the door. She sat at her station and wondered what was happening. What Yuna did not know was that Earth had been preparing for this moment for 30 years. Long before she was born, a dying alien had crashed on Earth. The alien was not Veth. It was from a species called the Keth, one of the 17 species the Veth had destroyed. The alien lived for only 3 days, but in those 3 days, it told human leaders everything. It told them about the Veth, about the hunts, about the extinction of entire civilizations. It told them that one day, the Veth would come to Earth. The world governments had made a choice. They would not announce this to the public. They would not cause panic. Instead, they would prepare in secret. They built weapons in underground factories. They trained soldiers in hidden bases. They developed technology that the Veth had never seen before. And most importantly, they learned to be quiet. The human colonies on Mars and the moons of Jupiter went dark. They stopped sending signals. They hid their heat signatures. They became ghosts. If the Veth came looking for noisy prey, they would find only silence. Do-hun made his call to General Hyuk, the commander of Earth's secret defense force. Hyuk was a hard man with white hair and scars on his face. He had spent his entire life preparing for a war that most people did not know was coming. "They are here," Do-hun said. "How many ships?" Hyuk asked. 3. Scout class. Hyuk nodded slowly. This was expected. The Veth always sent scouts first. They liked to study their prey before the real hunt began. "Let them come," Hyuk said. "Let them look. Show them nothing." In a laboratory deep under the mountains of Korea, Dr. Minji listened to the same call. She was the chief scientist of Project Owl, humanity's answer to the Veth threat. She was small and thin with glasses and messy hair. She had not slept in 2 days. She had been waiting for this moment her whole career. Project Owl was not about building bigger guns or faster ships. Minji had studied everything the dying Keth alien had told them about Veth psychology. She knew how they thought. She knew what they feared. The answer was simple. They feared nothing. They had never been hunted. They had never been prey. They did not understand what it felt like to be afraid. Minji planned to teach them. The 3 Veth scout ships entered the solar system slowly and carefully. They expected to find a busy world full of stupid creatures making noise and light. Instead, they found empty space. The human colonies they had detected from far away were now dark and cold. No signals, no movement, no signs of life. Commander Tall received the scout reports and felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Confusion. Where were the humans? Why were they hiding? Prey did not hide this well. Prey panicked and ran. Prey made mistakes. These humans were different. Tall sent new orders to his scouts. Land on the red planet, search the tunnels, find the prey. The scouts obeyed. They landed their ships on Mars and stepped out into the red dust. They carried weapons that could cut through stone. They had armor that could stop bullets. They had 4 eyes that could see in any light. They walked toward the dark tunnels of the abandoned human colony. They did not know they were being watched. They did not know that for the first time in 12,000 years, the Veth were not the hunters. They were the prey. And humanity was patient. Hunter Captain Kresh was the best tracker in the Veth Dominion. He had hunted prey on 60 different worlds. He had killed creatures that could run faster than sound. He had killed creatures that could turn invisible. He had killed creatures that could read minds. None of them had survived. Kresh always found his prey. Kresh always made the kill. He led 12 elite hunters into the Mars tunnels. They moved in perfect formation, their 4 eyes scanning every shadow. Their gray skin was covered in black armor. Their claws clicked softly on the metal floor. They were silent and deadly, like ghosts made of knives. The tunnels were dark and cold. The humans had left everything behind when they abandoned this place. Kresh saw empty rooms and broken machines. He saw food containers and old clothes. But he did not see humans. He did not hear humans. He did not smell humans. This was wrong. "Spread out," Kresh ordered. "Find their trail." His hunters moved into the darkness. Kresh watched them go, his 4 eyes never blinking. He had a bad feeling in his stomach. He had never felt this before. He did not know what it meant. Back on Earth, General Hyuk sat in a bunker deep underground. Around him were screens showing every part of the solar system. He could see the Veth scouts on Mars. He could see their heat signatures moving through the tunnels. He knew exactly where they were. Dr. Minji stood beside him, watching the same screens. Her heart was beating fast, but her face was calm. This was the first real test of Project Owl. Everything they had built for 30 years would be tested tonight. "Are our people ready?" Hyuk asked. "They have been ready for 10 years, Minji answered. In the Mars tunnels, Kresh stopped walking. Something was wrong with his equipment. His scanner showed nothing. His radio made only static sounds. He tried to contact his hunters. No answer. He tried again. Still nothing. Kresh turned around slowly. He had come into the tunnel with 12 hunters. Now he was alone. He had not heard them leave. He had not heard them die. They had simply vanished. For the first time in his 200 years of life, Kresh felt something cold in his chest. He did not recognize the feeling. He had never experienced it before. It was fear. He started moving faster. Back toward the entrance. His claws scratched the metal floor. His breathing became heavy. The shadows around him seemed to move. But when he looked, there was nothing there. Then he heard a sound. Soft footsteps behind him. He spun around and raised his weapon. Nothing. He turned back and ran. The entrance was close now. He could see the red light of Mars outside. He was almost safe. A shape dropped from the ceiling in front of him. Kresh fired his weapon, but the shape was already moving. It rolled to the side and stood up in the shadows. It was a human, a female. She was small, much smaller than Kresh. She wore black armor that seemed to eat the light. Her face was calm, her eyes were patient. Kresh pointed his weapon at her. "What are you?" he growled. The human tilted her head slightly. She did not look afraid. She looked curious. Like a scientist studying an interesting bug. "My name is Jisoo," she said in perfect Veth language. "I am a soldier." Kresh felt his fear grow stronger. How did she know his language? How had she killed 12 elite hunters without making a sound? What kind of creature was this? "Where are my hunters?" he demanded. Jisoo smiled slightly. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator. "Dead," she said simply. "They died scared and confused. Just like all the other species you have hunted." Kresh roared and charged at her. He was 3 times her size. His claws could cut through steel. No creature had ever survived his attack. Jisoo moved like water. She stepped to the side, and Kresh's claws hit only air. Before he could turn, he felt something cold touch the back of his neck. A blade, sharp enough to cut through his armor. "I could kill you now," Jisoo said quietly. "It would be easy. You are slow, and loud, and predictable. Everything your species does, we have studied. We know how you think. We know how you fight. We know your weaknesses." Kresh could not move. The blade pressed against his skin. One small push, and he would be dead. "But I am going to let you live," Jisoo continued. "I want you to go back to your masters. I want you to tell them what happened here. I want you to show them this." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. She pressed it into Kresh's hand. "This is a recording of tonight," she said. "Every moment. Every death. I want them to see how easily we killed their best hunters. I want them to understand something important." She leaned close to his ear and whispered, "You are not the hunters anymore. You are the prey, and we have been preparing for you for 30 years. She removed the blade from his neck and stepped back into the shadows. By the time Kresh turned around, she was gone. He was alone in the tunnel with only the bodies of his hunters. Kresh ran to his ship. His hands were shaking. His hearts were beating too fast. He flew back to the Veth fleet as fast as his ship could go. When he arrived, he went directly to Commander Tal. He played the recording. Tal watched, with all 4 of his eyes. He saw the 12 hunters enter the tunnel. He saw them start to disappear. One by one. He saw the shadows move in ways that shadows should not move. He saw the small human woman standing over the bodies, like a demon from old stories. When the recording ended, Tal was silent for a long time. "What are they?" Tal asked finally. Kresh shook his head. His body was still shaking. "I do not know," he said. "But they are not prey. They are something else. Something we have never seen before." Tal sent the recording to the High Council. He added his own message. "These creatures are dangerous. They do not act like prey. They act like predators. I recommend we send a full invasion fleet. We must destroy them quickly, before they become a real threat." The High Council watched the recording. They saw what Tal saw, but they did not feel fear. They had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years. They had destroyed 17 species. No primitive planet could threaten them. They sent their answer back to Tal. Approved. Full invasion. 40 warships. 10,000 hunters. Burn the planet. Kill everything. Leave no survivors. On Earth, General Hyuk received word that the Veth had taken the bait. They were sending their fleet. They were angry, and confident, and blind to the danger. He looked at Dr. Minji and allowed himself a small smile. "They are coming," he said. Minji nodded. Her eyes were cold and focused. "Good," she said. "Let them come. Let them see what happens when prey fights back." The trap was set. The hunters were coming. And Earth was ready to show the galaxy that humanity was no one's prey. The Veth invasion fleet was the largest ever sent against a single world. 40 warships, each one bigger than a mountain. 10,000 hunters, each one trained to kill since birth. Supreme Huntmaster Vorak led them personally. He was ancient, over 500 years old. He had commanded the extinction of 3 entire species. He had never lost a hunt. Vorak stood on the bridge of his command ship and watched Earth grow larger on his screen. Such a small, blue planet. Such fragile creatures living on it. He would burn it all. He would turn their oceans to steam, and their cities to ash. The humans would learn what it meant to challenge the Veth. All ships report ready, his officer said. Good, Vorak replied. Begin the cleansing. But nothing happened. Vorak frowned. He gave the order again. Still nothing. His weapons did not fire. His screens started to flicker. The lights on his bridge went dim. What is happening? He demanded. His officers looked at their controls with confusion. Systems were failing across the entire ship. Life support. Navigation. Weapons. Everything was shutting down. One piece at a time. Then the alarms started. Red lights flashed everywhere. The sound was deafening. Vorak's officers ran to their stations, but there was nothing they could do. Their computers were dead. Their screens showed only static. We have intruders, someone shouted. Multiple breaches on all decks. Vorak could not believe it. How had the humans gotten onto his ships? They had no fleet. They had no technology that could match the Veth. This was impossible, but the reports kept coming. All 40 ships were under attack. Humans were inside every single one. They had appeared from nowhere. Like ghosts. Like shadows that had learned to walk. Captain Dohun led the assault on Vorak's command ship. He moved through the dark corridors with his team of Ghost Division soldiers. They wore black armor that bent light around them, making them nearly invisible. They carried weapons that made no sound. They had trained for this moment their entire lives. Beside Dohun was Yuna, now promoted to tactical specialist. Her heart was pounding, but her hands were steady. She had dreamed of this day since she was a child, since her grandmother told her stories about the warning from the stars. The Ghost Division soldiers moved like water through the Veth ship. They knew every corridor, every room, every weakness. Dr. Minji had spent years studying Veth ship designs from the data the dying Keth alien had given them. They knew these ships better than the Veth did. Veth hunters tried to stop them. They were big and strong and deadly, but they could not fight what they could not see. Human soldiers appeared from shadows, struck fast, and disappeared before the Veth could react. Bodies fell in the darkness. Screams echoed through the corridors. For the first time in 12,000 years, Veth hunters died afraid. Dr. Minji watched everything from Earth Command. Hundreds of screens showed her the assault on all 40 ships at once. Her teams were moving perfectly. The Veth were panicking. Their chain of command was breaking down. Hunters who had never known fear were now running away from shadows. This is what we trained for, she said quietly to herself. This is what humanity does. We adapt. We overcome. We survive. On the command ship, Dohun and his team reached the bridge doors. 2 Veth guards stood outside, their weapons ready. They saw nothing. They heard nothing. Then they fell to the floor, dead before they knew they were in danger. Yuna placed a device on the bridge doors. It was small and quiet. It ate through the metal like acid through paper. The doors fell open with a crash. Vorak stood in the middle of the bridge, surrounded by his officers. His 4 eyes scanned the darkness, looking for the enemy. He saw nothing. He heard nothing. But he knew they were there. He could feel them, watching him. Show yourselves, Vorak commanded. His voice was strong, but there was something new in it. Something weak. Something afraid. Dohun stepped out of the shadows. His armor shimmered and became visible. Behind him, more human soldiers appeared, surrounding the bridge like silent wolves around trapped prey. Vorak stared at them. These small creatures. These weak, soft things. How had they done this? How had they brought his entire fleet to its knees? "Who are you?" Vorak asked. Dohun removed his helmet. His face was calm, almost peaceful. He looked at the ancient Veth leader with something like pity. "We are humans," he said simply. "And you should not have come here." Vorak raised his weapon. He was still a hunter. He would not die like prey, but before he could fire, Yuna moved. She was faster than any human Vorak had ever seen. Her blade flashed in the dim light. Vorak's weapon fell from his hands, cut in 2 pieces. He stumbled backward, shocked. "You cannot win," Yuna said. Her voice was quiet but strong. "Every ship in your fleet is captured. Your hunters are dead or surrendered. Your empire will learn what happened here today." Vorak's 4 eyes went wide. Surrender? Veth hunters did not surrender. This was impossible. All of it was impossible. "What are you?" he whispered. Dohun stepped closer to the old huntmaster. He looked into those 4 alien eyes and spoke clearly so that every word would be recorded. "We are the species you came to hunt," he said. "But we are not prey. We are survivors. Our planet has been trying to kill us since we crawled out of the oceans. Predators with claws and teeth. Diseases that wiped out millions. Ice ages that froze the world. We survived all of it. We survived each other. And now, we will survive you." Vorak's legs gave out. He fell to his knees on his own bridge, in front of his own officers, defeated by creatures he had thought were nothing more than animals. "Run," Dohun said simply. "Go back to your empire. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that Earth is not a hunting ground. It is a warning. Any species that comes here to harm us will suffer the same fate." The Veth officers on the bridge were released. They took Vorak back to a single ship, the only one the humans allowed to leave. The rest of the fleet remained captured. 40 warships now belonging to humanity. As the Veth ship flew away, Vorak made one last transmission to the Dominion homeworld. His voice was broken. His spirit was destroyed. He spoke only one word: run. On Earth, the news spread quickly. The Veth fleet had been destroyed without a single nuclear weapon being fired, without a single city being bombed. Humanity had won not with strength, but with intelligence, with patience, with fear. General Hyok spoke to the world that night. He told them the truth they had hidden for 30 years. The alien warning, the secret preparations, the ghost soldiers who had saved them all. People were shocked. People were afraid. But more than anything, people were proud. They had faced the greatest hunters in the galaxy and won. Dr. Minji did not watch the speech. She was already planning the next phase. The Vaith would not stop. They would come back with more ships, more hunters, more anger. Earth had to be ready. Yuna stood on the observation deck of the captured Veth command ship and looked down at her blue planet. She thought about her grandmother, who had received the warning from the dying Keth alien all those years ago. She thought about all the species the Veth had destroyed. 17 civilizations, erased from history. Earth would not be the 18th. She made a silent promise to the stars. Humanity would not just survive. They would make sure no other species suffered what the Keth had suffered. They would hunt the hunters. They would teach the galaxy that there was a new predator among the stars, and the predator's name was humanity. The Veth Dominion had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years. They had never known defeat. They had never known fear. Now they knew both. The news of Vorak's fleet spread across the empire like a disease. 40 warships lost. 10,000 hunters dead or captured. The Supreme Huntmaster himself had returned, broken and trembling, speaking only one word: run. The Veth people did not understand. How could primitive creatures from a tiny blue planet destroy their greatest fleet? Fear changed them. Ships refused to patrol near human space. Hunters who once competed for glory now refused assignments. Young Veth who had dreamed of joining the great hunts now had nightmares instead. They dreamed of shadows that moved, of small creatures with patient eyes, of darkness that swallowed hunters whole. The Veth High Council met in their ancient chamber to discuss what to do. Some wanted revenge. Send every ship in the Empire. Burn Earth until nothing remained. But others were afraid. If 40 ships had failed, what would stop the humans from destroying more? What if the humans came to them instead? On Earth, there was no celebration. General Hyuk knew the war was not over. The Veth had thousands of ships, billions of citizens, resources that humanity could not match in a direct fight. They had won one battle, but the enemy was still strong. Dr. Minji came to him with a new plan. She called it Operation Long Night. We cannot just defend, she said, spreading maps across the table. We need to take the fear to them. We need to show them that nowhere is safe. Not their ships, not their colonies, not even their homeworld. Hyuk listened carefully. It was a dangerous plan. It would take a small team deep into enemy space, across the entire galaxy, to the heart of the Veth Dominion. The chances of survival were low, but if it worked, it would break the Veth forever. Who will lead this mission? Hyuk asked. Minji already knew the answer. Lieutenant Yuna. She is the best we have. And she has been asking for this since the day we captured the Veth fleet. Yuna received the news with calm determination. She had been waiting for this chance. Her grandmother had told her stories about the Keth alien who warned humanity about the 17 species the Veth had destroyed. Yuna wanted justice for all of them. She chose her team carefully. 12 soldiers, the best of the Ghost Division. Among them was Sergeant Jisoo, the woman who had let Kresh live on Mars. Jisoo was 40 years old now, her hair streaked with gray, but her skills were sharper than ever. She smiled when Yuna told her about the mission. Finally, Jisoo said, time to visit their home. The last member of the team was a quiet man named Taewoo. He was an engineer, not a fighter. He had designed the stealth systems that made human ships invisible to Veth sensors. He was shy and awkward in conversation, but brilliant with machines. Without him, the mission would be impossible. Their ship was called the Silent Wind. It was small, fast, and completely invisible to any known scanner. Taewoo had built it himself over 5 years. It could travel through Veth space like a ghost, leaving no trace. The journey took 6 months. 6 months of hiding in asteroid fields. 6 months of watching Veth patrols pass by without ever knowing humans were nearby. 6 months of studying the enemy in ways no one had ever studied them before. Yuna kept detailed notes. She learned Veth language perfectly. She studied their social structures, their religion, their psychology. Taewoo built devices that could listen to their communications without being detected. Jisoo trained the team in Veth fighting techniques, teaching them every weakness she had discovered. The most important thing Yuna learned was this. The Veth had no stories about being hunted. In all their 12,000 years of history, they had always been the predators. They had myths and songs about great hunts, but nothing about fear. They had forgotten what it meant to be prey. Their ancestors had probably known fear once, long ago, but that knowledge was lost. Yuna planned to remind them. The Veth homeworld was called Threk. It was a dark planet with black oceans and gray mountains. Billions of Veth lived there. In cities built from the bones of species they had hunted, the Supreme Council ruled from a great tower at the center of the largest city. Inside that tower were the hunting trophies of 17 civilizations. Weapons, art, technology, all that remained of entire species, displayed like decorations. Yuna's team landed during the Festival of the Great Hunt, the holiest day in Veth religion. On this day, the 12 members of the Supreme Council gathered to celebrate their history of conquest. They wore ceremonial armor and displayed their greatest kills. They told stories of hunts past and planned hunts future. The security was heavy, but it was security designed to stop Veth enemies. It was not designed to stop creatures who could move through shadows like water, who could defeat any sensor, who had trained for 30 years to be invisible. Taewoo disabled the surveillance systems with a device no bigger than his thumb. Jisoo led the team through the tower's service tunnels. Yuna mapped their route in her head, every turn memorized, every guard's position known in advance. They reached the Supreme Council's private chambers in the middle of the night. 12 rooms, 12 council members, all sleeping after a long day of celebration. Yuna gave her orders in hand signals. Her team split up, 2 soldiers for each chamber. They moved in perfect silence. They did not kill anyone. Instead, they left messages. Human bootprints on the floors. Human handprints on the windows. They carved words into the ancient hunting trophies, words in Veth language that said simple things. We were here. We watched you sleep. We chose to let you live. In the chamber of the council leader, Yuna herself left the final message. She carved it into the skull of a Keth warrior, a trophy that was 3,000 years old. This time, when the council members woke the next morning, they found the messages. They found proof that humans had been in their most sacred space, their most protected rooms, while they slept. Humans had stood over them with weapons and chosen not to strike. The psychological impact was worse than any bomb. The council leader screamed for his guards. He screamed for explanations. But there were no explanations. The security recordings showed nothing. The sensors had detected nothing. The humans had come and gone like ghosts, proving that no Veth was safe anywhere. News spread through the Empire. The humans had reached the homeworld. The humans had entered the Supreme Council's chambers. The humans could go anywhere, do anything, and no one could stop them. Veth society began to crack. Regional commanders stopped trusting each other, each one convinced that humans had already infiltrated their ships. Hunters began to see shadows everywhere. The species that had ruled through fear now drowned in it. Yuna's team escaped Threk without losing a single member. They flew home through the long dark, the empty space between galaxies where no one traveled. The journey took another 6 months, but they were not bored. They were busy planning, because this was just the beginning. Yuna recorded a message and sent it to Earth before they entered communication range. It reached General Hyok 3 months before she returned home. Mission successful, the message said. The Veth are afraid. They jump at shadows. They cannot trust their own security. Their empire is cracking from within. But we cannot stop now. Other species are watching. Other victims of the Veth are waiting to see what we do next. We started something here. Now we need to finish it. Hyok watched the message in his office, alone. He was old now, tired from years of secret war, but he smiled as he listened to Yuna's words. Finish it, he said to himself. Yes, it is time to finish it. He called Dr. Minji and began planning the final phase. The Veth had hunted 17 species to extinction. Now those 17 species would have their revenge, through humanity. 3 years had passed since the humans came to the Veth homeworld. 3 years of fear, confusion, and collapse. The Veth Dominion, once the mightiest empire in the galaxy, was falling apart. Regional commanders had stopped following orders from the Supreme Council. Planets that had been conquered long ago began to rebel. Species that the Veth had enslaved saw weakness and rose up. And everywhere, there were whispers about the humans, the shadow creatures, the hunters who hunted hunters, the small, soft beings who had defeated the greatest predators in the galaxy without firing a single missile at their homeworld. The Veth High Council met one final time in their ancient chamber. The room that humans had violated 3 years ago. They had cleaned the floor and the windows. They had removed the carvings from the trophies. But they could not remove the memory. They could not remove the fear. The council leader spoke to his members. His voice was tired. His 4 eyes were dull. He was not the proud hunter he had once been. We have a choice, he said. We can continue this war until our empire is dust. Or we can try something that our species has never tried before. What is that? Asked another council member. The council leader closed his eyes. Peace. The word hung in the air like something strange and dangerous. The Veth did not make peace. They hunted. They killed. They conquered. Peace was for prey, but they were not the hunters anymore. The humans had proven that. I will go myself, the council leader said. I will travel to their world. I will ask for an end to this war. He chose a new name for himself. Thresh. In the old Veth language, it meant one who seeks. It was not a name of pride. It was a name of humility. The first humble name a Veth leader had taken in 12,000 years. The human government agreed to meet. Ambassador Thresh arrived at Earth on a single ship, carrying no weapons, wearing no armor. She was the first Veth to visit Earth in peace. Admiral Dohun met her at the station. He was 60 years old now, his hair completely gray. The man who had led the assault on Vorak's command ship now commanded humanity's entire space fleet. He looked at Thresh with calm, patient eyes. "Welcome to Earth," he said simply. "We have been expecting you." Thresh was escorted to a building in the mountains of Korea. The same mountains where Dr. Minji had once worked on Project Owl. The same place where humanity had learned to fight back. The meeting room was simple. A table, some chairs, windows that looked out at snow-covered peaks. Nothing fancy. Nothing designed to intimidate. The humans did not need to intimidate. They had already won. Dr. Minji was there, older now but still sharp. General Hyuk had died the year before, peaceful in his sleep after knowing that his life's work had succeeded. His portrait hung on the wall, watching over the meeting. Thresh sat across from the humans. She had practiced this moment many times in her mind, but now that she was here, she found it difficult to speak. She had never talked to prey before. She had only hunted them. But these were not prey. "Why did you come?" Dohun asked. Thresh took a deep breath. Her 4 eyes met his 2. "To ask a question," she said. "My species has hunted for 12,000 years. We have destroyed 17 civilizations. We thought we understood the galaxy. We thought we were the top of every food chain. Then we found you." She paused, her gray hands trembling slightly. "What are you?" she asked. "How did creatures as small and weak as humans defeat us so completely?" Minji leaned forward. She was old now, but her mind was as sharp as ever. She had spent her entire life studying this question. She had the answer ready. "We are a species that spent our entire evolutionary history being hunted," she said. "Long before we built cities or ships or weapons, we were prey. Predators with claws and teeth hunted us in the forests. Diseases hunted us in our blood. The weather hunted us with ice and storms. Our own planet tried to kill us for millions of years." Minji smiled slightly. "We did not become the hunters because we were the strongest. We became the hunters because we learned. We adapted. We remembered. Every predator that hunted us taught us something. Every disaster that nearly destroyed us made us cleverer. We are the species that turns weakness into strength. That is what we are." Thresh listened in silence. She thought about her own species, how the Veth had been born as predators, how they had never known what it meant to be prey. They had never needed to adapt, they had never needed to learn from fear. The humans had. "You have something we do not," Thresh said slowly. "You understand fear. You know how to use it." Dohun nodded. "Fear is not a weakness. It is a tool. It tells you when to fight and when to hide. It keeps you alive long enough to learn. Your species forgot that lesson millions of years ago. We never did." The negotiations lasted for 3 weeks. There were many things to discuss. Borders, prisoners, the future of the Veth colonies, the fate of the species the Veth had enslaved. In the end, they signed the Treaty of Soul. Human space was recognized as sovereign territory. The Veth agreed to free all enslaved species within 10 years. There would be no more hunts against intelligent beings. The era of extinction was over. But the most important part of the treaty was not written in words. It was the acknowledgement that, for the first time in 12,000 years, the Veth accepted another species as equals, not because humanity had destroyed them in battle, not because humanity had conquered their planets, but because humanity had taught them something their entire history had failed to teach them. The apex predator is not the one with the sharpest claws or the strongest muscles. The apex predator is the one that survives, the one that adapts, the one that learns from every defeat and becomes stronger. Thresh returned to her people with the treaty. She told them what she had learned. Many Veth were angry. Many could not accept that they were no longer the supreme hunters, but slowly, over years and generations, they began to change. They began to learn from the humans, just as the humans had learned from them. Commander Yuna, now promoted to lead humanity's new exploration fleet, stood on the observation deck of her flagship. The stars stretched out before her, endless and beautiful. Somewhere out there were the remains of 17 civilizations, species that the Veth had erased from the galaxy. Humanity could not bring them back. But they could make sure no one else suffered the same fate. Beside her stood Jisoo, old now, her hair completely white. The veteran sergeant had finally retired from combat duty. But she refused to leave Yuna's side. She lit a cigarette, one of her few remaining bad habits, and looked at the stars. "Think they really learned their lesson?" Jisoo asked. Yuna considered the question. The Veth were changing, but change was slow. There would still be problems. There would still be those who wanted to return to the old ways. "They learned that Earth fights back," Yuna said. "That is enough for now. The rest will take time." She turned to face her old mentor, the woman who had first shown the Veth what fear felt like. "Back in those dark tunnels on Mars. But we cannot stop at defense," Yuna continued. "The galaxy is full of species like the Veth once were. Predators who think they can hunt without consequence. We need to teach them all the same lesson." Jisoo took a long drag from her cigarette and smiled. "So we become what? The galaxy's protectors?" Yuna shook her head. "No. We become what we always were. Survivors. But now we survive for everyone. We hunt the hunters. We protect the prey. We become the thing that predators fear when they look into the darkness." The ship's engines hummed to life. Ahead of them, the stars waited. New worlds to explore, new species to meet, new dangers to face. But for the first time in 12,000 years, those dangers would face something they had never encountered before. A species that had been hunted for millions of years. A species that had learned from every predator, every disaster, every defeat. A species that had turned survival into an art form and fear into a weapon. In the dark between stars, every species that had once feared the Veth now whispered a new name. A name that meant hope for the weak and warning for the strong. A name that promised protection for those who could not protect themselves and justice for those who had been forgotten. Earth, humanity, the hunted who became the hunters. And in her flagship, sailing toward unknown space, Yuna made a silent promise to all the species the Veth had destroyed. To the Keth and the 16 others whose names she did not even know. "We remember you," she whispered to the stars. "We will make sure the galaxy never forgets. And we will make sure it never happens again." The ship jumped to light speed and vanished into the long dark. The hunt was just beginning, but this time, humanity was the one holding the spear.